Hello students, this is Dr. Sujata Magdum, Assistant Professor in Zoology, KTHM College, Nashik. Today, I'll be dealing with Immunology for MSc Part 2 students, Semester 3, and in this, I'll be talking about certain immunotechniques, but prior to discuss the different types of immunotechniques which are commonly used in day-to-day life, we shall try to understand the properties of antigen and antibody reactions. This is in continuation with my previous lecture wherein I dealt about how antigen and antibody they interact to result into formation of immune complexes, or you can say they are responsible for formation of antigen antibody reactions. Now these antigen antibody reactions actually they are the bimolecular association where the antigen and antibody combine together, and this combination is very specific so that it can show certain observable component like the process of formation of precipitation or agglutination or clumping and so on. Therefore, you can say that antigen antibody reactions they show very specific interaction between each other and results into formation of observable manner. These reactions they are similar to your enzyme substrate interaction, and the only difference what we can see is in case of enzymes you can see that the reaction is reversible, whereas in case of antigen antibody interaction the reactions are irreversible and there is no alterations seen, or you cannot get back the antigens or antibodies from the reactions in intact manner, which is not otherwise same with reference to enzyme substrate reactions. Now there are certain properties which you need to consider when you are talking about antigen antibody reactions, and one of it is specificity. So what is specificity? Here we can say that antigen antibody reaction involves specific interactions, indicates that there is a specific antigen which will be reacting with a specific type of antibody. Now why is it so? The only reason is the antigens which have the binding receptors onto their surfaces, which are called as epitope, they are very unique, and this unique nature will enable it to bind with the antigen binding site of antibody, that is called as paratope, in such a manner that both of them they need to have the homologous structure. In other way, you can say that there has to be structural similarity seen between the antigen binding site and the antibody binding site so that the reaction comes into existence. Exception is the cross reactions which may occur due to sharing of epitope among different antigen. But in these cases, the reaction will give you the false results. In such cases, we can say that antibody against one antigen can cross-react with a similar epitope of a different antigen. Therefore, the outcome cannot be surely said to be a positive one. Now, the second important property of antigen-antibody reaction is these are showing non-covalent interaction. So what do you understand by non-covalent interaction? Actually, it is the union of antigen and antibody which is required for formation of large number of non-covalent bonds or interactions. Now, what are the different types of non-covalent interaction one can see in antigen-antibody reaction is hydrogen bond, electrostatic interaction, hydrophobic interactions, and van der Waals forces. Now, all of these are very weak bonds you can say, and that is the reason these non-covalent interaction they are important in indicating the formation of antigen antibody reactions. Now the third important property of antigen antibody reaction is the strength, which includes the affinity and avidity. So let us see what do you understand by strength. The strength refers to the firmness of association influenced by affinity and avidity of antigen antibody reaction. So now here there are two different terms, that is affinity and avidity. So what exactly is affinity? Affinity refers to the sum total of non-covalent interactions between a single epitope of an antigen with its corresponding paratope present on antibody. Or in simple terms, you can say that affinity refers to binding potential of single epitope with that of the corresponding paratope. That is called as affinity. You can recall the structure of antibody wherein there are two binding sites. So, when you're talking about affinity of any antigen, we can say that we are not going to consider the binding potential of two paratopes here, but we will be considering the single paratope which is interacting with the single epitope, and that defines the affinity of the molecule. Affinity can be measured by two methods, that is by equilibrium dialysis or by surface plasmon resonance method, right? We are not going to go into the details. We'll just mention about that these are the two methods which are used to measure the affinity. Now let us talk about avidity. Avidity refers to the term which actually describes the affinities of all the binding potentials when multivalent antibody reacts with a complex antigen. In other words, here what you have to say is all the antigen binding site of a particular antibodies interacting with the different epitopes or the multiple epitopes of a complex antigen will give rise to avidity, or in other terms or in simpler manner you can say the total number of antibodies binding site, that is the paratope, which are interacting with a complex antigen. You know what are complex antigen? These antigens, they are multivalent in nature, indicating they show presence of multiple epitope. So all the different epitopes which are seen present onto one single antigen, its interaction with a particular antibody which is having again a multivalent nature. So the sum total of these interactions will be called as the avidity. When a complex antigen carrying multiple epitope react with a multivalent antibody, you can see the avidity. Therefore, you can say that this is actually the total strength which is much more higher than the individual affinity of each binding site. Avidity is not actually equal but lower than the sum of all affinities. The difference is primarily due to geometry of antigen and antibody binding sites. Now, this avidity is actually a better indicator for the strength of antigen-antibody reaction. Avidity of antibody can compensate for its low affinity. For example, immunoglobulin M has low affinity than immunoglobulin G but is multivalent in nature. The reason is IgM, it has 10 valences, indicating it has 10 binding sites. Therefore, has a much higher avidity, but it can bind to an antigen more effectively than the immunoglobulin, right? So that is what is affinity and avidity. Now, where are we using this antigen-antibody reactions? Actually, these are used in diagnostic. It is used as a diagnostic tool. Why? The reason is it is specific and observable, and these diagnostic tests, as they are based on antibody-antigen reaction, they are also called as immunoassay. These immunoassay can be categorized into two types. The first one is in which you can detect the antigen. Therefore, it is called as antigen detection assay. And in the second type of test where the amount of antibody can be assessed, it is called as antibody detection assay. So either you can measure the antigens or you can measure the antibody using certain tools which are called as immunoassay. Now, these assays can be qualitative or quantitative in nature. So, what are qualitative assay? Actually, the qualitative assay gives you either there is presence or absence of antigen or antibody in certain sample. Thus, you can say qualitative assay can be read as a positive or negative based upon presence or absence of either the antigen or antibody into the sample. Now, there are certain disadvantages to this qualitative assay, that is, the number of antigens or antibody which are present into the reaction, they are disproportionate to each other. Therefore, it cannot give you a proper result as such. If either antigen or antibody are present in higher quantity, probably the result what we get will be a false negative. To rule out such false negative test, it is ideal to test the series of dilution serum, which is called as the quantitative test, which is the next what I'll be discussing after this qualitative assay, instead of just testing the one sample of undiluted serum. And that is why, as this has certain disadvantages, we go for quantitative assay. So, quantitative assay refers to when the qualitative test turns to be positive, the exact amount of antibody in the serum can be known by serial dilution. This is very important. If you are not performing serial dilution, it gives you only the qualitative test. But if you are undergoing the serial dilution of the serum of the patient, it gives the quantitative test wherein you can measure the amount of antigens or antibody, and this can be done by mixing each dilution of the serum with the known quantity of the component, that is the antigen. The measurement of antibody is expressed in terms of units, or it is more commonly called as a titer. Now, quantitative tests are more reliable as they are differentiated into true negative and false negative results. Now, there is the hypothesis which is given by the Marek, and it is called as Marek's hypothesis, which is also called as the lattice hypothesis, wherein it is stated that antigen-antibody reaction is either weak or fails to occur when the number of antigen and antibody are not proportionate to each other, indicating that probably the amount of antigen or antibody could be either less or it could be very low, very high. So, in both the cases, whether it is in excess or it is in lesser quantity with reference to presence of antigen or antibody, we can distinguish the phenomena as the pro-zone phenomena and the post-zone phenomena. Now, here in the picture, you can see the pro-zone phenomena, where we can say that the antibodies, they are seen in excess. Now, these all Y-shaped structure you can see, they are the antibodies, and in between these two Y-shaped structure, can you see a sphere which is red in color? That is denoting the antigen. Obviously, the number of antibodies which you can see here, they are much more larger as compared to the number of antigen, and this type of phenomena is called as the pro-zone phenomena. And in such situation, the antigen-antibody reaction does not occur. Actually, it occurs, but it is not measurable. Why? The number of antigens, they are less than the number of antibody. That is the reason. Now, in the last figure, you can see here, which is called as the post-zone phenomena. In case of post-zone phenomena, you can make out that the amount of antigen, they are much more larger as compared to the number of antibody. Once again, here also, the antigen-antibody reaction fails. The reason is the number of reacting antibodies, they are very less as compared to the number of antigen. Therefore, in such situation, that is either in the pro-zone or in the post-zone, the lattice formation will not be observed, or it does not increase. And why does not it increase? It is only because it is inhibited due to formation, or lattice formation is inhibited only because there is excess amount of either the antibody or antigen respectively, and as they are more in number, then the reaction cannot get satisfied. Now, what are the different types of antigen-antibody reaction? These can be categorized into two groups, wherein we can say there are certain conventional techniques and there are certain new techniques incorporated to identify the antigen-antibody reaction. So let us first see what are the different types of antigen-antibody reaction which are commonly used by means of conventional methods, and that is precipitation, agglutination, complement fixation and neutralization. Of this, we have studied complement fixation test into the previous lecture, that is yesterday's lecture. Tomorrow, I shall be talking about the precipitation, agglutination and neutralization reaction. The new techniques includes the ELISA, that is enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay, or alpha, that is enzyme-linked fluorescent assay, immunofluorescence, that is IFA, or RIA, that is radioimmunoassay, chemoluminescence linked immunoassay, that is CLIA, immunohistochemistry, or there are certain rapid tests like the lateral flow assay, which is also called as immunochromatographic test, and the second one is flow through the assay. There is use of Western blot or immunoassay using electron microscope. Of this, which we will be talking about ELISA, then we'll be talking about immunofluorescence and RIA in detail in the subsequent lectures. So when you are evaluating these assay, what are we trying to understand? We are trying to understand the sensitivity and specificity of the reaction. So what do you understand by sensitivity? Actually, the sensitivity defines the ability of the test to identify correctly all those who have the disease. That is called as the sensitivity. That means all the tests which are giving us true positive, they are defining the sensitivity of the reaction. And specificity is in these sensitive people, how many of them they are actually suffering from the disease will give you the specificity. Sensitivity is calculated as the true positives whole divided by true positives plus false negative. So in the next lecture, I'll be talking about the important immunoassays like ELISA, RIA and immunofluorescence. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you.